tad too cute when he makes sly implications regarding the size, or rather the implied lack thereof, of the private parts of male members of the GOP. Also, his blunt use of slang synonyms for reproductive or excretory organs in characterizing individuals whose politics differ from his may discomfort some readers. I think it made Bob Samaras a little uncomfortable, to tell you the truth. But anyway, he wrote a nice thing. Still, the pervasive wisdom in this edgily amusing, frankly politically skewed, yet brilliantly philosophical treatise makes it a must-read for those sages, semi-sages, or sages in training, young and old, male and female, Democrat, Republican, who hope for a fairer future for all humankind. Okay, haven't gotten to the meat of this yet because I got a preface to share with you now. Here comes the preface. At the publication, I wrote the preface. At the publication time of this definitive dictionary and almanac of advice, its ravaged old writer had been absolutely writhing for a number of months in the pre-geriatric throes of his 5th year as a full-fledged, self-styled septuagenarian sage supreme, SSS. He therefore finds himself increasingly disposed to succumb to midday naps, from which he frequently awakens late in the afternoon, just in time to sip a wee drambouille from the ancient Isle of Skye. The old bugger, capital O, capital B, the old bugger is nonetheless prepared to take full, alert responsibility for the contents of this palpitating publication. Given the fact that much of it is presented in a humorous and often sardonic vein, a large section of the public may regard it as having been written mostly tongue-in-cheek, and thus might be inclined to sample it entirely in that same spirit. However, that would be to let the political, poetic, and philosophical parts of this exegesis go unread, or lightly considered, and many of those parts are written in what can best be described as a sometimes somber seriousness. Yeah. While the timeless truths to follow aren't set forth in any form of personal revelation of quasi-mystical lore, this old writer has offered the readers many definitions, quotations, quips, and concepts to ponder deeply, some verging on the surreal, I have to admit, along with what he confidently believes is relevant counsel for coping with the daunting human challenges of the dawning millennium. Not the least of these will be the nation's imperative to stand with our president as he strives to clean up after 8 years of GOP misrule, as he strives to make America all oil independent. It's not going to be easy, but it has to happen. Oil independent with a homegrown green industry, as he strives to clean up the catastrophic mess created by British petroleum, and as he, because I wrote this right around the time of the oil spill, and as he strives to extricate our country from its 2 wars, now 3, now we're another. These all remain the circumstances, whether you're a member of the political party that has an ass for its logo, that's us, or whether you're a member of that other, even less lucid party of the pachydermist persuasion. Pachydermism. In either or neither case, the old writer wishes to assure every reader that every single syllable in the syllabus was written in the selfless service of all Americans, and indeed of all humanity. Thus it is by humanity and future generations thereof that its worth will best be judged. Its all author recognizes no lesser court of appeal. Abuse he has long grown personally accustomed to suffer as a crusading and unabashedly ultra-liberal school administrator. Calumny has long been his daily familiar for the same reasons. And in ongoing slander he smiles in stoic contempt, but no longer with bitterness. At least no longer much bitterness. All that having been said, they just took the column from the Michigan Chronicle. I don't know why they did it. They haven't explained to me why they did it, but I wrote for them for 10 years. Never charged them a dime, and all of a sudden, zoom, my columns were yanked away. That's why I went on the live on the radio on 107.5 every Sunday, 1:45 in the afternoon, so I can keep my voice in front of the public, but it's costing money, and I'm looking for sponsors. So spread the word. All that having been said, your modest old author invites or dares you now to turn the page and peruse the titillating Telford's table of topics in what you will discover to be a totally transfixing tome. I'm not going to answer this, I'm just going to silent on it. This book has thousands literally thousands of what I call Telford's table of topics. So I can't really, share all of them with you. But, I think I'm going to start at the back of the book, because it's easier, to do it like this, and I'm going to share, some of them with you. Let's go back to the Z's. Let's go to the Z's. Zoos. Item called zoos. Z-O-O-S, zoos. Definition. Places where no animals, but a whole lot of people belong. When leaving a zoo, it's a neat idea to start running toward the exit, yelling, "Run for your lives, they're loose!" Because we are loose. And we got to do something to get us back into the right direction. We are definitely loose. Okay, to the whys. Your destiny. Item, your destiny. Why are you are? Your destiny. Something that is determined by choice, not chance. We are all self-made. We are all totally self-made. Can't blame it on anybody else. Can't blame it on our parents. Can't blame the school we went to. Can't blame it on anybody but ourselves. We are what we accomplish. Period. End of sentence. What I always tell my kids. What I told my kids at Finning High School all the time. Here's another why. You'll see it when you believe it. It sounds kind of backwards, and it says see Whizzians, in the W's. And here, let me share Whizzians with you. Whizzians. Where is Whizzians? W-I, right? W-H-I. Whizzians. Here it is, Whizzians. You'll need to delve further into this item for the definition of Whizzians. All old men, according to this book's definition of old men, have come to recognize that people of all ethnic origins and all races, black, white, brown, and every shade in between, are equal in the sight of God. And yes, Matilda, this does include ethnic Whizzians. Even though many Americans regard most of them, particularly the males, with considerable suspicion. And this is entirely understandable because it's a verifiable fact that all ethnic Whizzians have, on occasion, been called clannish, unclean, quarrelsome, basically unlettered, promiscuous, and inherently dishonest, even by the most unbiased observers. This may surprise you, but radical, hopelessly ultra-liberal Democrat, though we are all author professes to be, I'm sincerely sorry to have to say that I must agree with this. For instance, no truly learned academician can conscientiously deny that Whizzians do happen to be quarrelsome and clannish. And you can take it from me as a most reliable source. I'm definitely here to tell you that almost any hot-blooded male Whizzian wouldn't hesitate to boink your wife in a Minnesota minute. You don't believe that? Given the opportunity. Anthropologists have noted with studied interest that a few of those sexy rascals even have vestigial tails. And finally, while I hesitate to have to be the one to tell you this, on the night of April the 1st, 2010, I actually saw your wife on an easy rest motel on Telegraph Road in Southfield, Michigan, with a particularly big, greasy one. I think I'm kidding. Okay, admit it. That sneaky old Telford fellow had to go on for just a brief teeny weeny minute, didn't he? Actually, Whizzians are an invention of the National Science Foundation, which did a study testing Americans' prejudice level. These seldom seen rascally dogs definitely came out on the short end. On a scale rating, most respondents, regardless of race or ethnicity, declared those feisty Whizzian folk, who happen not to even exist, to be least desirable in almost every category. There's a visceral lesson to be learned here, and much of the world still hasn't learned. In one of his best-selling self-help books, Wayne Dyer, who wrote the introduction to this entrancing tome here, uncommonly reversed the words in a common phrase, thus, you'll see it when you believe it. Sadly, some people already believe it, and it doesn't even exist. Okay, let's find some more W's. WHOP, W-H-O-P, not W-O-P, gotta be careful with the word W-O-P, but W-H-O-P, verb transitive, variation of whip, or as Muhammad Ali would say, wop, to administer an old-fashioned 16th Street Detroit Zone 8 ass whipping. Also, bash, as in this book, is a basher of Bush. Whom, W-H-O-M, quote unquote. Absent the quotation marks, a relative pronoun that rhymes with boom, doom, and cartoon. However, especially exclusive to this publication, quote, whom is a noun rather than a pronoun. Quote, whom is an acronym which, in addition to calling him a who, your old author's volatile young African-Irish Native American wife, from whom I am now sadly separated and getting divorced, also called him a, quote, white, honest old man. The fourth characteristic in this appellation, maleness, rendered it even less possible for your old author to prevail in his copiously publicized battles with the matriarchy that was mismanaging the Detroit public schools. Circa the second half of the first decade of the 21st century, had he simply been a problematically honest who, in a white, honest and old. See who. See also cartoon. Okay, we're still on the W's, you know, I don't want to know what we got here. Okay, what old men know. Item, what old men know. Although this is the title of this two-terrestrial tome, maybe because of its brevity compared to Webster's, it should have been entitled just some of what old men know, or only a little bit of what old men really know for sure. Also, a few disgruntled Republicans or other sectarians, Republicans, they check their Webster's, they probably don't know what sectarians mean, but may say it should have been entitled, but just one dotty-dottering old Democrat thinks he knows. Or maybe instead it should have been entitled What Old Men Should Know, or What Some Old Men Know, or What a Precious Few Men occasionally learn in later years when they have just a teeny tiny smattering of brains and a whole lot of luck. Sad to say, many of us old hombres, and young ones too, are painfully slow learners. Even more of us never ever learned what old men, small letters, old men, capital O, capital M, and young men alike viscerally need to know in order to offer succor to our fellow men as well as to our women, in this all too briefly visited world of woe, where we worldwide wanderers only infrequently find fleeting, precious, too brief little bits of the true happiness we seek throughout the seemingly interminable years. You know, when you're septuagenarian, you wonder where those years went. You know, I mean, I was running a quarter mile 46 seconds yesterday. No, was it yesterday? It could have been yesterday. Yesterday I was still 75 years old. And I think the West World record is 75. 90 seconds, maybe. Yeah, maybe 100 seconds. Wayne State University, Wayne State University. Your old author's triple alma mater. WSU is a highly regarded urban center of learning, right smack in the middle of dynamic Detroit, sitting in a veritable hotbed of swift high school sprinters. There's a guy right there with a hell of a sprinter. What was your 100 time? 90? Yeah, you ran 90. 100 yards, 90. What was your best? 97. All right, I got you with 10. WSU needs to restore its vaunted and historic men's track and field program, pronto. It eliminated in 1987, the first year in the 20th century, the Detroit track team. And we're going to be talking about this with the new president of the Detroit Track Overtime. That's a group that I founded some time ago. Okay, skipping back. Oh, here's one. Vigilantism. Vigilantism. Your old author's father's frequent avocation. Also, your old author's father's son's frequent temptation, as revealed in this verse, titled "The Mad Vigilante from the Java Cafe." I'm the mad. There's got to be a little poetry in here, because there's no poetry in here. I'm the mad vigilante from the Java Cafe, and I just wrote this poem. I just wrote it today. Now, vigilantism is part of my creed. Vigilantes have become what we need. So proffer me a smoothie and an oozy, my good fellow. The smoothie's for my belly, and the oozy's for the yellow four-syllable curse word who beat the old man. He beat the old man. He beat the old man. Yes, I just wrote this poem. I just wrote it today. I'm the mad vigilante from the Java Cafe. After young thugs beat a 90-year-old man in the parking lot of a Detroit convenience store in 2007, stole his car, your outraged old old author, penned this base bit of doggerel, printed it in his Telford's Telescope column in the Michigan Chronicle, and recited it at a gathering of poets at the Java Cafe at 440 Burroughs in Detroit. Incidents like that one, which inspired this verse, are proliferating all over the country in this Bush-generated economic collapse. And vigilantism may, God forbid, become indispensable indeed in the midst of the coming chaos, which is already, unfortunately, upon us. I'm still in the V's. Here's one, varicose, V-A-R-I-C-O-S-E. Close by. Definition reserved for Republicans. There's a gulp on us to do that. Okay, down to the U's. Uranus. The apple up Uranus too. Stick a plug in Uranus as well. Actually, Uranus is perhaps the planet whence G.W. Bush possibly came. Must have evolved or devolved somewhere out of this world, right? Now, some of these are real short definitions that I can read, fairly fast, because I want to leave enough time, for open mic. Here's another item: 20,000 teenagers. 20,000 teenagers. The approximate number of high school-age kids in Detroit who aren't in any public school, charter school, or suburban school in the city's periphery are totally beyond the control of their mothers or grandmothers and are playing permanent hooky. I tried to tell Robert Bob that, and he sort of was listening. The Detroit Public School District needs to hire truant officers, round those kids up, and get them back in school before they do some things that would be very expensive for the police, the courts, greater Detroit metropolitan community to deal with. And this level of truancy isn't just a Detroit urban phenomenon. It's happening all over the urban areas throughout the country. It's not just us, even though we seem to catch all the they blame us all the time. Many times when it happens in Detroit, field day with us. Time. Quote, we know exactly what time it is until someone asks us to explain the concept. So spake St. Augustine. Poet Delmore Schwartz said that time is the fire in which we burn. Aged sage Carl Sandburg called time, quote, the coin of our lives. We must take care to spend those coins righteously, productively, and preventatively. And beware lest we invest them with others who spend them for us wrongly and unproductively, and thus render us bereft of those coins, or worse, use what remains of them to foment some manner of mischief, catastrophe, and chaos. Also, as aged sage Yogi Berra responded metaphysically when asked what time it was. He said, you mean right now? That's Yogi. A concept incomprehensible to skeptics is a timeless theory of one of the two Alberts, Einstein, that time can run backward as well as forward. Potentially and seemingly miraculously it can. When I talk about that, what old men know, I was blowing some of my kids' minds with some of these concepts. They thought I was a little crazy. But okay, I was trying to open their minds up. We're talking about rewinding and also fast-forwarding the real. It's kind of an amazing concept. Both space and time become distorted when moving objects approach or attain the speed of light. Physicists now believe that slender strings of pure energy, and I talk about string theory in here, slender strings of pure energy might have survived in their original state rather than cooling off for the rest of the universe shortly after the Big Bang. Within this intriguing scenario, it is possible for two light rays from a single star to travel by two different paths of different lengths on each side of one of these strings, depending on the position of the light source, and actually end up at the same place simultaneously, even though one of the light rays would take longer to get there. Because light always has to travel at the same speed. A spaceship taking the shorter of the two paths at 99.9999% of the speed of light would reach the far side of a string of original cosmic energy at the same moment as a light ray traveling a longer path, and therefore move faster than light and thus go backward in time. Your anonymous poet once poeticized, our end is our beginning is another twin. Within this measured stint shall be, has been, and never ever more again can be. Yet paradoxically, the shall be which has been perhaps can be again, under the preceding or some other as yet undefined complex but precise set of cosmic conditions. A person could conceivably, pun fully intended, go back in time prior to his birth and kill his own great-grandfather, thus eliminating the possibility of his own conception. And and also sequentially impregnate his great to the nth power grandmother, and thus fuck himself through a perpetually revolving door of existence and non-existence and existence and non-existence ad infinitum. I mean, think about that for a minute. Here's a piece of aged sage advice from your old author. Don't contemplate this theory for too long, or you'll go insane, particularly if you're not a non-reflective Republican. Anyway, any Republicans in the House? I apologize in advance because I'm going to be saying some other stuff too. Anyway, the concept of one of our quote, grandchildren of the nth power is coming back from the infinite future to kill us is the least of our worries in the 21st century world that is spinning away from rational righteousness and plain rationality at warp speed. And I've got some other topics in here that touch on that. Eternity, infinity, minute, now, not minute, but minute. Something that is borrowed, string theory, and 10 trillion years. Let's see, gee, I'm still on the T's. Here, thesaurus. A book of synonyms that George W. Bush would need ongoingly in the likely circumstances that he would have to write his own speeches and could. B, something that Bush and Dan Quayle may still believe to be a dinosaur. That's actually not my joke. I read that somewhere, and I put it in here. Teeny wee wee, also referred to as teeny wiener. Teeny tiny wiener, teeny tiny wee wee, teeny weeny wee wee, teeny tiny pee pee, Oscar Mayer economy size, and RPP, Republicans Private Party. C, penis anxiety, penis uneasiness, pygmy, adjectival usage of pygmy, Republican. See also we, W-E-E, the Scottish derivative adjective for small. Okay, now I'm on the